I'd like you to meet a friend of mine, a brother architect by name George Willing, who's just about to start planning a new council housing project. As he's looking rather worried, we won't disturb him just at the moment, so let's meet his son, Bobby. Bobby is also engaged on a housing project, but while Mr. Willing Sr. has the advantages of age and experience, young Bobby has far greater advantages. No financial problems, no labor problems, no supply problems, no transport problems, and of course unlimited space. He's not concerned with the costs of erection, nor will he have to worry about maintenance of the finished job. What's more, he brings to bear an imagination and a technique quite unfettered by traditional methods. To his father, however, these are all acute problems which are reflected in the present high cost per square foot of any housing project. That's one of the reasons why Willing is looking so unhappy. I say one of the reasons, because although it's only 9:30 on a nice summer morning, the day started very badly from the word go. To show you what I mean, let's put the clock back to 5 to 8 and meet Mrs. Willing, as Mr. Willing did when he came down to breakfast that morning. Mrs. Willing is a very nice woman, intelligent, charming, in fact, everything that a hard-working architect's wife should be. But this morning... If I may act as your interpreter, Mrs. Willing is saying that long ago she accepted the cruel blow which fate dealt her in the form of a husband. But what she cannot tolerate is having to spend her life slaving in a kitchen that was obviously designed by some mad inventor of booby traps. It would appear that early that morning, when Mrs. Willing went to the kitchen door to get the milk, the mail, and the Morning Post, she caught her apron on the knob of the broom cupboard. The door swung open, and wallop went the milk. Mrs. Willing concluded her little piece by saying that if the said spineless husband had chosen some useful and intelligent profession, such as politics or film acting, he would have had the sense to take a house with a less dangerous kitchen, until such time as they could afford to build their own. Mr. Willing's attempt to pacify by pointing out that he had already designed their new house, and with a properly planned kitchen, met with womanly scorn. Mrs. Willing pointing out that as the bacon was now going up in smoke, he might as well burn the whole place down and be done with it, kitchen and all. And so to breakfast, consisting of burned bacon, an angry wife, and a letter from Mr. Malkin, chairman of the Bridlington District Council Housing Committee. It seems there have been a lot of complaints from tenants about the kitchens on the Fursley Grange estate. Not one of Willing's jobs, thank goodness. But, Mr. Malkin says,
it is imperative that we avoid any grounds for criticism in the case of the new Popesfield Park project on which you are engaged. Therefore, I must ask you to bear these complaints in mind in preparing your plans. But it must be clearly understood that there can be no question of increasing the present target cost per square foot. Yours, etc., N.J. Malkin, Chairman.
Yes, the Fursley Grange estate. Rushed up just after the war, I believe. They did have a lot of trouble with that one. In fact, we might have a look at the plans before we go any further. Here's the kitchen layout, the same for all 84 houses. Drains and water pipes here. Power supply for cooker here. Now, what happened was this. The electrician got in first and staked his claim to space for the cooker. Then the men came to install the sink unit. When it was offered up, Charlie, the foreman, discovered that the right-hand partition wall was causing the sink to encroach on the cooker's territory to the tune of 2 inches, which meant that the partition wall itself needed moving 2 inches further away. Not only that, but the doorway was 3 inches too near the outside wall, and that would have to be moved as well. As you can imagine, the clerk of works took a dim view when he was called in, because they had bought all the sink units, and in any case couldn't get any others small enough to fit without ordering specials, which would have meant months of delay. Charlie expressed the opinion that it would cost at least £24 to move the partition, as it meant altering the floor finishes and ceilings on each side, as well as resetting the door linings. And that went for all 84 houses on the estate. And, said Charlie, Most of them are already plastered, too, like what someone else must have been when they drew up these blooming plans. There was no room to shift the equipment to the other walls. They were just one mass of setbacks, doors, and recesses. Well, how's that for kitchen planning?
Hello, Willing here.
Morning, Mr. Willing. My name's Ruffman of the Modern Mary Kitchen Cabinet Company. I'd like to come and see you about our new range of kitchen cabinets. They're just the very thing for your new housing project, and they'll solve all your planning problems. All the units fit together in several harmonious color combinations, and the prices are reasonable, too.
Look, Mr. Rodman, I can't discuss kitchen fittings till I've planned the kitchens. The plan must come first, you understand?
Exactly. The plan must come first. Well, let's see how Bob is getting on. He has a much simpler task. You know, I can't help feeling sorry for his father trying to solve this kitchen planning problem under present conditions. If you take the average small house, of which this is quite typical, the proportion of living space to total enclosed floor area is around 80% in the best examples, with access front and rear. The maximum area available for the living room, dining space, and kitchen rarely exceeds 40% of the whole. So the kitchen becomes the Cinderella of the piece, with only 8 to 12%. Yet I see no reason why it shouldn't, like Cinderella, become a princess if the fundamental requirements of a kitchen are carefully worked out in relation to the rest of the ground floor plan, whatever the type of house. By fundamental requirements, I mean the necessary wall and floor space, light, and access to enable the housewife to make efficient use of such essential items of equipment as a sink unit, a means of heating water, a cooker, storage facilities, working surfaces, and a refrigerator. Each of these items requires a minimum amount of floor and wall space. And although they may vary to some extent in size and type, it is most important to ascertain their sizes before designing a kitchen plan. For instance, the average family-size cooker requires a space, say, 1 foot 9 inches deep by 2 feet wide. That means 3.5 square feet for the cooker. It's 3 feet high, and you'll notice that the working surfaces from the cooker to the sink are all the same height. Thanks, Charlie. Now the refrigerator, please. This tabletop refrigerator needs about 4 square feet, but allow a minimum of 4.5 square feet for the smallest upright model. Next, the sink unit. Sink unit 5 foot 3 inches long by 1 foot 9 inches deep. Good. That allows for the 2 draining boards and means just over 9 square feet for this item, with space beneath for an electric water heater or cupboards. And now working surfaces. Dishing up counter, often forgotten, 3 or 4 square feet. Working counter, 6 or 7 square feet. As you can get a lot of cupboards above and below the working areas, we shall only need an extra 2 square feet of floor space for cupboards. This gives us a total of 29 square feet. So it's safe to say that approximately 30 square feet net are required for the essential items of equipment without counting access. Anything less is inadequate. This rarely amounts to a basic kitchen. And this basic kitchen must be planned in such a way as to provide sufficient uninterrupted wall space. For don't forget that breaks and setbacks in the walls waste an unbelievable amount of space and prevent equipment being properly placed. If a door has to be placed in a corner of the kitchen, it should be placed either right in the corner, or alternatively not less than 1 foot from the return wall to allow space for at least a shallow cupboard, or 2 feet in the case of a working counter or refrigerator. The same thing obviously applies to windows, and one good-sized window in the center of a wall, providing light for all working areas, is far better than a number of small ones. If we have another look at the kitchens on the Fursley Grange estate, you'll see what I mean. They have one small window tucked away in one corner, providing no useful light at all, and a second larger window tacked onto the back door in the other corner, providing light just where it's least needed. And watch the swing of the doors. They all take up space like these. which prevented the cupboards being installed where intended on the adjoining walls. Now, in this example, the whole working area is fully lighted because the windows are the right size and they're correctly placed. If we apply these basic kitchen planning principles to the Fursley-Grange kitchens, where the doors and windows were in the wrong places, the way becomes clear for all the cupboards and appliances necessary to equip a kitchen. The elimination of unnecessary joinery and partitions and the correct placing of doors and windows not only saves money, but allows a properly planned, labor-saving kitchen to be provided in exactly the same area as before and without upsetting the plan of the house. The kitchen must take its rightful place in the ground floor plan, while at the same time it must itself be properly planned for the tasks to be performed in it. For after all, it is the workshop of the home, and therefore the kernel of its plan must be thought, not afterthought. That means that we must consider primarily those factors which have been determined by long experience, by step-saving research, and by good common sense. The rules are few and quite simple. Food storage and electric refrigerator on the one hand, china, glass and utensil storage on the other, with sink in between and the cooker within easy reach of the sink. The cooker should have its own direct wiring to the cooker control unit, which should be placed 4 feet from the floor. There must be a sufficient number of socket outlets for full use to be made of electric labor-saving appliances. This is most important, for it costs far less to put them in at the start than it does to add them later. And where possible, the new universal 13-amp 3-pin fused plugs should be used. In the event of an appliance developing a defect, only the fuse in the plug blows and nothing else is affected. All one does is change the fuse. It's only a matter of seconds as the lights stay on. But no matter how efficient the layout of a kitchen may be, all the thought that has gone into it is often nullified by poor artificial lighting. If the kitchen is very small, one light can be sufficient. But it must be placed over the working area in front of where a person would stand. One central fitting is quite unsuitable, for the occupant is nearly always working in her own shadow, and this causes unnecessary eye strain and the danger of accidents. Mrs. Willing tried to solve her kitchen lighting problem by buying a bulb of higher wattage. But, as the man at the Electricity Service Center pointed out, proper lighting is largely a matter of planned lighting, of having the right kind of light in the right place. Due to the flexibility which electricity permits, virtually any problem of kitchen planning can be met and mastered. With a net floor area of 50 square feet, it's possible to provide a working kitchen that offers all the housewife could desire. However, my friend Willing wanted to manage with less in the case of the Popesfield Park project, and provided 2 solutions. The first was virtually a basic kitchen, small but planned for ease of working. It had room for all necessary items of equipment and was arranged as an adjunct to the dining room. The second type was the all-electric dining kitchen with the same working equipment, providing added spaciousness and saving in labor, to say nothing of economy and constructional cost. As it turned out, Popesfield Park was the first local housing project which didn't run over budget, and the tenants were more than satisfied, and even went so far as to say so. Oh yes, and to end our Cinderella story, Willing finally built his own house, and he used the dining kitchen idea too. Exactly the same basic planning principles applied to the kitchen side. Food storage and refrigerator on the one hand, sink in the middle with one large window where it does most good, china, glass and service counter on the other hand. Cooker handy for both the sink and the service hatch. Every run of free walling wide enough to take an item of essential equipment and free from setbacks. Plug outlets well placed and sufficient in number. And of course, really good lighting. An electric panel fire for warmth here. And hot water provided by an electric water heater here. Well, I think you'll agree that electricity can play an important part in saving space and saving cost. Moreover, dust and dirt are eliminated. Maintenance costs are reduced, while decorations last much longer in the fresh, clean atmosphere of an electric kitchen.
Mary, darling, listen to this. My dear Willing, I'm enclosing copy extracts from a number of letters we have received from tenants of houses on the new Popesfield Park estate voicing their approval of the kitchens.
That's wonderful.
There's better to come. As a result, the District Housing Committee would like to consider what can be done about the Fursley Grange estate and would esteem it a favour if you would attend a preliminary meeting at the Town Hall at 3 p.m. on Monday next, yours, etc., N.J. Malkin. What do you think?
Aha, my dear Willing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you, but that's just the point I've been trying to make. You used the right word. Think. Thought. Planning. Kitchen planning. With electricity.